Good
Cool.
morning, everyone, and then welcome to another podcast episode, Signals and Symptoms. I am so excited that my good friend Martin from Segment is here. Just FYI, a disclosure, this is a completely non-sponsored section, but I just want to say that at Save Life AI, we have now completed Neuro ICH, which is FDA approval because of Segment. I'm just going to be honest with you. Then we have DenseView, Mammocyte, chest X-ray, all of the data, US data is coming from Segment. I'm just gonna say a shout out to Jessica, who has really helped us. Out of all the requests that I've sent to multiple people, including different data brokers, I don't like to use the data word data broker, but data acquisition partners. I would use that Segment for most of my things. We're gonna have a lot of more common ground to cover soon. I have a new way to extract structured data from radiology reports. We're going to push it hopefully directly into Segment. So when you are searching for more data within their amazing platform, you're going to see exact diagnostic type that you're looking for. We're going to hopefully work together on auto labeling, et cetera, et cetera. So we have many more things to come. But before I do that, I just wanted everyone who is looking for building radiology AI, I think Segment is the core partner. Again, non-sponsored and fully vested. You can look at my use case on their website, NeuroICH, and they have done at least 45 to 50, helped many companies build FDA-approved situations. As usual, we're going to go ahead and start with our updates. The biggest update of the week was that Cognita develop basically a chest X-ray visual language model. Now we have seen this, and I'll show you in a minute that MedGemma is there, Phi from Microsoft, and there's so many other models. But the benefit, the huge news, is that it is FDA breakthrough device designation, and we're looking at a new era in which we're going to see this as a VLM, essentially not just looking at diagnosis, but also creating an initial report for radiology review. We are entering, in my opinion, and regulation wise, a new era of radiology. I'm super excited. And we have actually personally at Savely Africa worked on it. So my good friend Harvey Castro is pissed at me because I did not help him work on OpenClaw yet. So Harvey, here's the thing. So Paperclip is what I'm looking at, which is an open source orchestration. And then, of course, as you know, I'm obsessed with security and cybersecurity. And this actually will help you build. And as we are building more and more new stuff, this is a whole sort of process in which you can actually monitor what the each and every agent is doing. And you can essentially build a zero human company. So what I'm going to do is my Mac is coming, as I told you. I ordered personally M5 Macs because I want to run some things locally for testing. But more importantly, as you can see how NVIDIA builds open data for AI, this is something that we are working on. We are creating a library of open source radiology data. Martin, you're going to love it. Basically available for anyone. And then you augment it with Segment and your own data. And then you have the fastest way to create data. So they are using some of these techniques that we actually also are working on. Definitely learned a few things that I did not understand, especially with physical AI collections and all of that, and how they actually do what we call sovereign AI. And then Harvey's most important topic is governance. So data collection is the first part, and then how do you make sure that the data is clean, and then all the rest, to be honest with you, does better. Another thing is storage buckets directly in Hugging Face. This is massive. It's going to help a lot because they have a lot of open source data in terms of medical recordings and all of that that was available in such a desperate way. And everyone was going through, somebody's putting in an AWS bucket, others putting in this. This bucket thing is going to really help a lot of people develop AI faster. So I'm extremely excited about Hugging Face Hub, which actually introduced storage buckets. SAM 3D body, full robust mesh recovery. I think me and Marty and someone actually with their AI team is going to sit down and actually distribute this. How SAM, which is Segment Anything Model, which by the way is on the version 3 right now, which has textable conceptual prompts. And I'll show you in the next podcast how RadioView has integrated it for auto labeling, because this is amazing. And then Once it is, then you go to a radiology QA, again, exercise, moving fast on how this is going to be done. Report review is, again, amazing important thing, and radar is actually a multimodal benchmark. So there are benchmarks, we discussed about it, but this is a multimodal benchmark, must read. You're going to see this one, sequential eye tracking. And this is very important when you are training an AI, especially a visual language model, that how to look at simple. And that's how ER physicians like Harvey, me as a neurologist, were trained. First, look at the trachea, then look at the lungs, then look at this. Is there any external devices? So the way that you start using visual reasoning supervision is very important in building medical VLM. So excellent read. I would highly recommend looking through this and how they have, essentially, make sure of that. It is from New Jersey Institute of Technology. Impressed. Large language model driven analysis and report of generation of endoscopy videos. Again, I mean, it's just getting insane. I'm just, I can't keep up with it. Accuracy and accuracy of tumor size measurement using deep learning CDSS. And this is really important, that the tumor size is basically going to define that if it's decreased tumor size, increased tumor size, and how you're going to change the future management. This is, again, on resected lung cancer. Again, important where SegMed comes in. Just a reminder, SegMed can provide you with longitudinal data. So if you are looking for data that is actually, hey, lung CT scans for the same patient for 3 months apart, 6 months apart, a year apart, SegMed does that. It's insane. No, by the way. So again, I'm non-sponsored. They should pay me, by the way. But what I'm saying is that I love this company, and that's why I brought them on board to understand this. We're looking at rodent, a synthetic chest X-ray modification, and if I correct image interpretation model shortcuts. What this means is that first of all, I'm going to ask Martin's help about understanding synthetic data in general. I have some experience. I'll talk about it. But synthetic data is becoming important in radiology. We're going to talk about it. They have a company behind them as well. He can talk about that. And look at this, personalized health plan development. Again, reminder, personalized health plan development using AI in Harvey. That's your game, buddy. So we're seeing live. Yep, that's his place. By the way, Martin Harvey is actually an AI advisor to Healthcare Ministry of Health Singapore.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yep. And then, of course, we're going to talk about the state-of-the-art designing clinical AI architecture in 2007. I just wanted to show you that how things are moving, especially within our company as well, that how we are using, moving from just vision models, which I still have the architecture, vision, language model report, or VLM to report. There are different ways to cut the thread. But at the end of the day, you can see that what we are looking at, the generalized vision models to specialized medical VLMs are coming more and more. And again, we talked about this, Cogenta, and then we go from here. And then we are looking at, this concept segmentation being part and parcel for our vision reasoning. I'm going to stop here. It is today's Martin's game. So we're going to go ahead and let him first introduce himself, because I apologize, I didn't introduce himself personally, his amazing journey from becoming a scientist to a founder to YC Combinator, and then tell us about SegMed, and then we can, figure out what Harvey has tough questions for you.
Ooh, now I'm getting nervous, Junaid. Okay, so thanks first of all for having me and for the shout out. And I totally agree. Your shout out to Jessica earlier on, like she's the best. Just wanted to have said that. But okay, so I'm Martin Willemink. I'm originally from the Netherlands. That's why I have a kind of a funny accent. I went to medical school there, did a PhD in medical imaging and a master's in clinical epidemiology and statistics. I worked for a couple of years as a resident in radiology with the idea of becoming a radiologist, having a good life in the Netherlands, and just stick around there. But after about 2 years, I got a grant to go to Stanford. And the idea was, okay, I'll do a postdoc. I'll be a researcher, clinical researcher for 1 year, and I'll go back, finish my residency. But I never came back. So the 1 year became 2 years, and then I became faculty at Stanford for another 3 years. So I led the cardiovascular imaging research there at the Department of Radiology. So really had a fun time focusing on innovation and research rather than on clinical work. And I honestly didn't really miss it, and I still don't really miss it. While I was at Stanford, I was consulting for an AI startup called Arteris. Consulting just meaning I was actually doing labeling and annotations for them. And I was doing this at Stanford as well, right? Like we were doing a lot of projects, and we needed to annotate, segment the data there. It took a long time. It was kind of fun, and especially to do this as a sidekick. And I thought, maybe there's something to do here. And that's actually the original idea of SegMed, is that we were going to be a segmentation and annotation company, hence the name SegMed. So what I did is I presented the idea of SegMed at a program of the Stanford Graduate School of Business. So that's the program is called Stanford Ignite, which is a 10-week part-time program. So it's not an MBA or anything; it's just a 10-week part-time program. But anybody that attends can pitch their idea, and then you can collect like a small group of people, and then you can work on this idea for 10 weeks. So that's what I did. I pitched the idea, and luckily got selected, and had a few great team members, and we decided to work on the idea. Quickly found out, okay, segmentation and labeling, it's all great, but there's not that big of a market, and it's really not the way to go. There's a red ocean. There's many companies already doing that. But the other idea that I faced actually in my career was it's not easy to get access to medical imaging data. Like if you want to do research, you really need the annotations and the labels. But before that, you actually need to have access to the actual data. And that was a big problem. And we learned very quickly, a lot of people have that same problem. So let's try to solve that. So that's kind of the basis of how we started with SegMed and the problem that we're tackling. This was about 7 years ago. So in the meantime, we've built a nice company actually tackling this. And I don't know if you want me to go into where we are now, or if you want to work towards that during the...
So just a reminder, SegMed, Martin, actually is closely related to an actual labeling company. So they don't participate in, first of all, they're really nice in the sense that, hey, we are not have a commission-based program. These are different labeling companies who can directly access our data and therefore find radiologists for you to label them. We didn't use that services because we actually have access to radiologists. And also not only that, they actually have access to my good friend, David Wu, who's a radiologist out of, I think, California, who runs a company that actually makes training label data from offshore accounts, including Vietnam, India, Pakistan, etc., when you have massive data that you need to do. So Martin's, as a client, you can see this feedback that it is important that they actually help you with actually building it. And then, of course, companies like Save Life AI can come in to actually write the whole FDA application as well for you. We don't have any official address, but Jessica knows about me and all of that. So what is important is the whole life cycle is that starts with the data. And without the data, the life cycle there's no life cycle. You can put where you are and everything in between, but I'm going to ask Harvey to start with the first question about that, and then we can move forward. Please feel free to add any information about SegMed in the between if you want to. This is, again, we are here.
Yeah.
We are very honest. Yeah.
So Martha, awesome meeting you. Thanks for coming. Just to kind of break it down, there's a bell curve here listening. We got some really advanced and we got some people just kind of starting out. And just to kind of set up the stage, we talk about AI in healthcare and we talk about the algorithms getting so much attention, but in reality, we all know that it's the data, and this is why you're here. Tell us more about, explain how, I'm really into the bias part. Explain us how you're getting around not saying around the bias, but how you're addressing bias, because just to let people know, what we don't know. So if the AI has studied something and you ask it a question, to us, it may seem biased because they're not answering this other part, but they've only been trained on this. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, that's a very important point, and maybe actually the main point that excited me when we switched from or pivoted from doing just labels and annotation to actually providing data. So in the meantime, we've built a large network of healthcare providers represented by all 50 US states. So it's really, healthcare systems, teleradiology clinics, imaging clinics, and so on. So a lot of diversity and heterogeneity in the data that we can provide to our customers. And that is the core of what's important here. When we started SecMed, actually in 2020, a year after we started SecMed, there was a paper, I think it was JAMA, I can provide the reference if needed, that was published that looked at, hey, where are the FDA approved deep learning models for radiology AI actually trained? And it showed that 71% of the training data actually came from 3 states: Massachusetts, New York, and California. And that's because that's where the Stanfords and the MGHs of the world are located, where people actually can get access because you can have an academic research collaboration. So you can imagine if you train a model that's based on data from those 3 places, like the fancy academic places where they have perfect CT scanners, MRI scanners, X-ray machines, and so on. And then you try to apply that model in the deep south of the US, where maybe the quality of the materials isn't as good, where you have a different racial and ethnicity population, that the model will not work very well. So that's one of the biggest problems that actually we're really trying to tackle at SecMed by providing diverse and heterogeneous data. I'm not saying there will be no bias. Of course, there'll be bias. I don't think you can ever get rid of bias, but you can definitely try to improve bias by improving the generalizability of the AI model developed on the data. And to get back to your earlier point about it's all about the data, I totally agree. Like AI models, a lot of people talk about, okay, it's the computer, the technology, it's the team, and the data. Those are kind of like the 3 most important pieces of the AI model developed. And yeah, you can have a great team, but if you don't have good data, your model is just not going to be great. So this data component is very, very important. And of course, you want to decrease the probability of bias in this whole process.
Yeah. And if you're able to, what are some of the techniques that you do or that we can share that other people are doing to address this?
To address bias, you mean, or to be able to?
Yeah, to address the bias in the data. Are you doing more federated learning? Are you doing swarm learning? What kind of techniques do you recommend?
Yeah, so we actually, so we are a company that provides the pipelines and the technology and the tools to be able to provide data in a centralized way, meaning we can transfer the data from the healthcare provider to the AI researcher or the researcher in general. Our customers are doing a lot of AI development, as in developing diagnostic models and so on. That's not what we do. We really help the hospitals with making their data. It's their data. We're just sub-licensing it. So we are not the owners of the data. We're representing the health systems to be able to do that.
Harvey, this is where. So first, so I actually designed the experiments for training and all of that. That how much training data I need, how much validation data I need, how much testing data I need, and then let's say I need develop, let's say, PE protocol. Then I'm going to say I need CTHS, and I used to be massive amounts of data, which has gone down, by the way, because of how technology is moving. But this is for rough numbers, so nobody, in the comments say that I don't know shit. I do know shit. I just not going to say it on a live podcast because I am actually potentially going to put this data request to Martin very soon. Let's say for courses, 10,000 studies, 7,000 for training, 1,000 for 500 or so for testing, and the rest for validation. And then what I do is I actually, they actually go ahead and source all available CTHS and then give us sort of a CSV file in which we can actually say, okay, you know what? I will need these many abnormals on the left, these many right, this will be PE over here, all of them. And then I can understand and basically say that the data will be, for example, male-female distribution, age distribution between 18 to 35 to all of that. And then also race-based distribution if possible. So Martin's team can actually literally take my recommendations of what kind of data I need to make it generalizable. And then they actually source that data for me. So even before Martin teams get involved, research like AI developers like our team basically take care of that bias problem from the get-go. Sometimes we get the data, sometimes we don't, but Martin's team is amazing in actually making sure that we get access to data. There are some issues in terms of like, as I said, one time, and we are still working on. Jessica is helping me out. But what I'm saying is that we design the non-biased generalizability from the get-go and then submit it to Martin's team, and then Martin's team gets back to us specifically what we can and cannot do, and then move forward, because the step one for us is always, hey, do we have the data? And then we move on. So that's how we're designing it. So when we have our RadioView AI, for example, now located at 3 different places, we are producing federated learning as a separate process where, live data is coming, live labeling is going, and then eventually we will send it to Martin as well, so that they can actually not only just produce data in general, but also work on giving pre-labeled data as part and parcel of their process. We are working on our process before we submit it to Segment, and then we're going to see. But long story short, that's how I, as AI developer, actually from the get-go control this. And just FYIing you. Now, just for the new bell curve, as you suggested, what does that mean? What that means is that whenever we are developing an radiology AI, we need generalizability, because it can, for example, breast, right? We had to make sure that it is going to be a 45-year-old African-American female at density of this to be able to predict this. So we have so many things to control that we have to make sure that we have the data available for that it can be generalizable to the community. So just want to make sure. Martin, now that you're looking at the progress of moving from just vision models to vision language models and AI drafting for radiology report, how do you foresee moving forward, how Segment will help future developers like me in producing VLMs and not just vision models?
Yeah, what we're seeing is a trend towards multimodal data, because the models are getting more complex and can handle indeed images, text-based information. And when I say text-based information, I'm talking about like the report of the radiologist, right? The radiology report, but also other clinical information, clinical notes, like, hey, what medication was the patient using? What are the risk factors of this patient, and so on. So that kind of information, of course, becomes very valuable as well if you want to develop these more multimodal, more advanced models. So that's something that we are starting to do as well. As yes, historically, we were just connecting to the PACS and the RIS systems, which is where the imaging data and the radiology reports are living. We de-identify the data, we standardize it, and then we make it possible to search and filter through the data and to get access to that data. Now we're actually also starting to work with some of our health systems to integrate with the EHR systems as well, to be able to get other kinds of information on top of the images. Images is still at the core of what we're doing, but we can provide additional data on top of that to be able to, for our clients to actually build these kind of models as well. By the way,
just giving you an example, live example, by the way, that Jessica helped us again, is that like we needed to know if the breast was actually biopsy proven cancerous or biopsy proven benign. Now that has nothing to do with radiology. It is basically a pathology report. And I just want to make sure that you guys understand that, yes, their team helped me with it, and I'm grateful to them. So what I'm saying is that what we are moving towards is that arc in which I have to predict cancerous lesion up to 5 years down the line, which I don't have I have internal data. This is retrospective, but I'm going to go ahead and find prospective partners. But what I'm saying is that Martin's team was able to help me with exactly what he's saying right now, with live client telling you that we were able to, with their help, be able to do this. Anyways, now going back to Harvey, because Harvey, actually, Martin, first, just if you have anything to add to this discussion, please do so. But then Harvey and me are going to keep asking questions.
Yeah, just fire along. I love it.
Yeah. From a data science point of view, I'm curious if you how you would do this. If I'm hospital X and I have my data and I show it to you, how are you checking for bias and a true representation of the data? Like you had a great example. Like it seems like I got to move to those 3 states to get better AI if I'm not using your data sets correctly. I'm really curious. How do you do that? How are you biopsying that population?
We don't have like super sophisticated data science technologies, which actually at some point could be interesting to apply. But right now we're really looking at it from a perspective of, okay, when we started, we had some contracts, so we were working with some imaging clinics, imaging centers, realizing, okay, these are mostly outpatient clinics, so we won't see a lot of more complex images or diseases or therapeutic areas within the data set that we have. And we do know that our clients, the AI researchers and researchers in general, are interested in that kind of data. So that actually led us to, hey, maybe we should actually reach out to more hospitals that actually have inpatients, so that we can have more coverage of diseases. And then we also started looking at, okay, so what kind of, because when you think about bias, there's a lot of different types of bias, right? If you think about the representation of vendors and machines in radiology, that's very important, because if you only train data on CT scanners from Siemens, how is this going to work on CT scanners from Philips, GE, Canon? Probably not so good, because the noise behavior, the reconstruction kernels, the acquisition methods are all slightly different. And the AI model may not know how it works, and especially when you're thinking about like difference in spatial resolution and those kind of things. So it's very important to have the diversity there as well. So we can easily see, okay, in the beginning, we had a lot of CTs from one vendor. We knew we need to have CTs from other vendors as well to be able to provide this. And by the way, one reason why this became very clear to us that this was important is the FDA. Because more than 45 FDA approvals have been done with data from SegMed, and the FDA will tell you, okay, you need to have at least 2 geographic regions. There needs to be a 50-50 male-female representation. 25% needs to be vendor A, 25% vendor B, and so on. So if you don't have that, you cannot provide the data set, right? So it's really important to have that diversity of the data. And for us, that just meant going after the right kinds of data partners so that we can partner with them, so that they can join the network, to be able to get that diversity of data.
So now I'm curious, would you say, depending on the use, it might be easier to work with some edge technologies and saying, hey, I'm working with Siemens, this machine, this is what we're doing, and then this is the data, but it's coming from this machine? Is it easier to do that than all of these different machines because you're changing the variables?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah. So say I was doing.
So Harvey, this is one of the things that Martin's team also does. So Harvey, for an FDA, I have to go for an application. I actually have to show distribution of generalizability on different machines as well. So let's say our CAT scan was done. We actually submit that we need it from Philips, GE, Siemens, etc., so that our model works on any kind of data that comes through. So again, you're right about use case. It's a pure research protocol for Siemens specifically. Somebody's doing it, that's fine. But for FDA application, the diversity of data does include as a regulatory part, as a regulation from FDA, that I need to, be able to present that it is going to work on HoloLogic and Siemens mammography machine and all of that. So just FYIing you that we actually have to source that data with SegMed's help, and that's where they come in, because they have massive different diversity of data partners through their pipeline. For people like me, who doesn't have to go to like 6 different hospitals ourselves and figure that out, the process itself and everything. And it's not just about that, by the way, Harry, just to let you know, we have to control for the number of slices per CT scans. We have to say that if it's a 1 mm slice of CAT scan, it will, do the bleeding. So then you have the third factor. So, it has to be Eastern region, it has to be Siemens, it has to be slices between one male and female 50-50, and then it has to be Siemens, then it has to be slices between 1 mm to 5 mm. It works perfectly on all of them. So it's just an insane process, by the way, Harvey.
Yeah.
You know,
No,
people think it's
yeah. Mark, all I was asking is if I own hospital A and I have a Siemens CAT scan machine, but I want to run, and it's a newer machine that's running algorithms on the actual machine, then I would assume for your purposes and your goals, it'd be easier for you to do it because you know it's just coming out of that type of machine in my population. It's very specific and narrow, and as opposed to me telling you I have 10 hospitals in my healthcare system, help me out, and you're like, wait, they're all different. You know, that was basically the question.
Yeah. No, that's right. So what's important as an AI developer, that the model that's developed is actually made for the target population. If your target population, you own a hospital with just one like Siemens scanner, you don't care about the GE scanners and the Philips scanners, probably, right? You just want to make sure that it works on Siemens scanners. That's true. But our clients are AI developers, like Junaid, right? He doesn't want his technology to just run in one hospital that only has Siemens. No, he wants his model to run everywhere, right? So you got to make sure that the generalizability is broader than that. But theoretically, you're right, Harvey.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I know the big thing as in the governance, obviously, is the privacy. So some people worry about that imaging data set creating privacy risk. How do you balance that access of data and protecting the patients?
Yeah, that's the main question, right? Like you got to make sure that the privacy and security is in place. So yeah, that's number one importance of what we're doing at SegMed is make sure that we are HIPAA compliant. We have, like SOC 2, ISO 27001. Like we have all our compliance in place. We actually even had, and that's quite unique. We had a statistics expert dig into our database for months and look into, hey, is it possible to re-identify the patients? And we got the stamp of, it's called expert determination. There's multiple ways of how you can be HIPAA compliant, and we're both safe harbor and expert determination. How do you say that? Credited. And because he looked into it and he said after all these months of research, okay, there's a very low risk of re-identification. But yeah, this is the thing that you need to do as a company in this space is make sure that you de-identify appropriately, that you have all your security measures in place and things like that.
So again, live example so that people understand. There are three things to de-identify. One is the radiology images, which is the metadata that comes de-identified, and cleanse, not just de-identified, it comes cleansed. Then the radiology report itself is cleansed. As a matter of fact, one of the reasons that we are not able to release one of our products is that Jessica is working on specifically one portion that need to de-identify before they can provide us. So long story short, they are very, very specific about making sure that if any data lands in any place, it is fully, not just de-identified. Let me clarify that. It's a triple cleansing system that they use, which I said that, all of them has to be, because there are images, radiology images, which has burnt in information of patient. So they also de-identify, let's say an echocardiogram with a burnt in information on the images. So it's not just about the DICOM metadata, the radiology report, but also the burnt in data that goes through it when we actually access the data. Again, one of the very important reasons that you should consider SegMed, because they do not do this BS. As Eric, sometimes I hate it because I want access to data quickly. But what I'm saying is that at the end of the day, it is something that they have of the core system. So Martin, coming back to, as I talked about, the next phase of radiology and then access to it. Now, if it's not a proprietary information, tell me how many data partners you have. Are you expanding globally, getting data from training data for, let's say, Vietnam and all of these India, so that I can have more global scale? Or what does the future look like in terms for you with the growing new pathways that are coming on, both in terms of data VLMs and also understanding what Harvey's constant questions are, is like, hey, is it going to work in Colombia? Is it going to work in Mexico? Is it going to work in Singapore? Is it going to work in, do you understand? Because that's what I want to go. Because I already have partners in, let's say, Qatar. And all of them, I had to get more data from them, ensure that everything was tested, and how you can help me with that.
Yeah, no, very good question. So first of all, we started in the US because actually the diversity of populations throughout the US is quite diverse. If you compare it to where I'm from in the Netherlands, it's not that diverse, right? So the US is a good place to get started, and we're still expanding there. We don't believe we need a lot more health systems. We actually have some larger health systems in the US already in our network, meaning that we can provide a lot of data. We do want to expand a little bit more, but not that much more in the US. After that, yes, international expansion is on the roadmap. We actually have some partnerships now with companies that are similar to SegMed, usually a little smaller, but for example, located in France or located in Germany, and being able to help us with data from those places. It is important indeed to have that diversity at some point, especially because if you talk about new technologies and new development within the AI space, you have to think about foundation models. So historically, our clients came to us to develop so-called narrow AI models. For example, hey, I want to develop an AI model that can detect or characterize lung nodules on a CT scan of the chest. You need some training data, you need some validation data to develop that. But now with these foundation models, you can actually, and by the way, Cognitas is one of those as well that Junaid showed in the beginning of this episode. But so these foundation models require exponentially more data than your traditional AI model. These foundation models are broad models that can actually implement many, many different features rather than just looking at one feature, lung nodules, for example. So this is a technological development which actually requires the need, results in the need for very, very large data sets. Like historically, maybe we were talking thousands of exams per model. Now we're talking hundreds, thousands, if not millions per model. So really, that requires large scale, of course.
That's awesome.
Yeah, one thing I do want to note, though, is volume is one thing, quality is the other thing. Because, like, if you look at radiological practice, half, if not more, of the exams are normal. Yes, you always need some normal exams in your data set, but you definitely need the abnormals. And for example, one thing that we are working on in terms of data partner expansion is we know there is a big need for oncological cases, right? There's a lot of research in cancer going on, and there's a lot of innovation there. And in order to make sure that innovation can happen, you need to have access to data from cancer patients. So we, for example, are onboarding cancer centers within our network because we know they actually have the types of data that are relevant there. So that's also how we're looking now at expanding our data network, is really targeted. Hey, who has good quality data that we know is valuable and is going to further improve innovation in the healthcare space?
Awesome. So there's a question in the chat about the same thing that I discussed. I want to clarify one more time. We need data from the west, east, south, just to confirm that we have this. And there's a very different population mix. I'm just giving you an example, again, not to bring race into it, but let's say if somebody asks me, is it something like, is your model going to work in Bosnia? I have no idea. But I can ask Martin's team to get, data from Chicago. I know for sure that there is a significant Bosnian population there. Or do you understand what I'm trying to say? So what the benefit of US is amazing. It is actually the most diverse of all societies in the world, on the planet. I'm just like, this is not a joke. This is actually data proven, because I have to prove to FDA that my model is generalizable. So it is, again, to harp on that point again, is that if you were to develop even a data, let's say you are in Amsterdam, I would recommend, using the US data because that actually provides you with the generalizability that anyone should work on, ethically speaking, except for a few, extreme use cases where you can actually say that, hey, there's no need for this particular data. I mean, I'm just going to give you an example, like the vasculature and then occlusion and stenosis is not going to be different on this, but yeah, the breast density is going to be different, for mass estimation is going to be different. And then you can actually think about that again when you go back, when you're designing the whole project, like I do actually personally in my company. You have to understand the whole end use case to what kind of go from there. Again, one more thing, Martin, that's just to highlight that the quality of data, in my opinion, is now way more important than the quantity of data, because the quality of data is because we are telling now AI to say, I don't know. So in short, the future of our company is that if the data quality incoming, because the patient has a movement artifact, or there was a massive sort of glow because they have an implant or something, we actually now train and starting to train AI say, I cannot analyze it. And the point is that we are never designing something that are 100% automated, except for, let's say, it's going to be in space when Harvey puts all his AI in phantom space, by the way. Just to remind people that Harvey Castro is also AI consultant for a space company, Phantom Space, which is putting AI models and AI hardware in space. So crazy.
Let me correct you. I'm actually the chief AI officer for the company, so I'm not just advising. I'm actually with the company. I'm under C-suite.
Oh, wow.
Just to add a little extra. Actually, I'll continue that one point. We're literally putting data centers in space, and we are creating. To your point, we are. Think of it this way: we're doing edge technology in space where the data is occurring. So if we have a satellite that is taking a picture of New York and looking at the weather, then we can process the weather up in space, not having to bring down the data and then we'll process in real time and then giving you the information. So you and I should talk, because there's some things that we probably do. But the other thing I wanted to talk about, if we can highlight Sunar's Hasi's comment, basically I'll read it if she doesn't put it up. He just put up there, the US has an extreme diverse population, yes, but healthcare is not accessible for all, and that is creating a limited available diverse data, especially data representing. Just to give you a little background, he's the CEO of Pons AI. I'm an advisor for them. They do ultrasound predictive analytics. It's pretty cool. They were just featured by the Mayo Clinic. But my question is to lead you into this. If that is going on, what is your feelings and understandings on synthetic data? I'm really curious what you have to say about that, and how the FDA looks at synthetic data, and where you think the future of synthetic data is. So.
Yeah, that's an interesting topic. And to this point, yes, I completely agree. Representing minorities, that's what I said earlier on, like, we're trying to decrease bias. There's no way we can get rid of bias. Yes, there are still populations that cannot get access to healthcare, even in the US or in other countries. That is unfortunately the reality, and we cannot do anything about that. We cannot get data that doesn't exist, unfortunately. But that's indeed where synthetic data comes in place. So yes, there will be bias in our data as well, in any data, but we're just trying to decrease it. With regards to synthetic data, I think it's super exciting. Like the opportunity to generate images that look like real images, but they're not real. I think that's a very, very exciting opportunity. That's how we actually started working with it. Like, hey, this could be cool. I don't think the FDA, at least I know the FDA right now for medical imaging, does not love the idea of, hey, my model works very well on 2,000 fake patients. Like, no, they're not going to be like, okay, you get the stamp of approval, you can now use it in the real world. But so for validation purposes, there's currently, but maybe in the future there will be, but currently no role for synthetic data in imaging. But for training data, there is. And I wouldn't say like 100% of the data can be all synthetic data, but I see it more as an augmentation or enrichment opportunity. Let's say 80% of your data comes from real world data, is actual patient data. But you have a specific like you want to have some high noise images that maybe do not happen very often in the real world, and they're not in your data set. Or maybe there's like a, you have the 4 major vendors, CT scanners or whatever, but there's a few more that you can't really get access to, but you do know how those scanners behave, what their noise behavior is, and those kind of things. Well, let's just synthetically generate some of those and add it to the data set. So when I say this, it almost sounds like this is already happening, like people are actually using synthetic data a lot. It's not. We actually have done some projects. We've actually had our sales and marketing team go out to AI researchers and researchers in general and be like, hey, what if we can provide you real world data plus some synthetic data? And everybody got really excited. Oh, that's a cool opportunity. And we don't want to pay for it. We don't actually want it, but it sounds cool. That's kind of the response that we've gotten. So I think it's still early. We actually wrote a paper about what the opportunities are and how it kind of works, that we published in Radiology not too long ago. And we got a lot of interest from people reaching out, but then nobody actually wants to pay for it. And I don't think the market is ready yet for synthetic data, but I do think in a few years, synthetic data will have an important role in augmentation and enrichment of training data sets for AI development.
A few of my comments. So FDA actually released a complete synthetic data for mammography. I don't know if anyone knows that. How I used it is that when I actually finished my model complete end-to-end with real data, just to let everyone know, we never use synthetic data. We actually use that data set to test our model. So there are a few edge cases that Martin suggested that I may not know. So synthetic data is fantastic because I can literally say, I need 60-year-old with Siemens machine, a stage 4 density with BI-RADS of this to be able to test it out. So I create a super diverse data set using synthetic data to actually test my model. And then, interestingly, FDA has no stance on synthetic data. So they have not approved it, and they have not actually denied it either, just to let everyone know that they are still in limbo if are going to use it or not. And the way that FDA under Martin, not this Martin, actually Martin of the FDA commissioner, is moving fast is that we might be able to actually use it like I'm using it, basically an additional testing and validation sort of for my models. This way, again, just another reminder, and that's why Harvey comes in, is this AI governance piece is so important. So for example, our RadioView architecture will actually give you live. So the radiology reports, radiologist reports, then the AI findings come in, and then this gets extracted. This is always reported. And then it will give you live true positive, true negative, false positive, and accuracy live. Every single patient, you will be able to see if your model is behaving as it should be. And this is another way of what FDA is trying to get at is basically, hey, stop with this, quote unquote, clinical sanitization and producing, results. Why don't we actually create this live, real world governance structure and monitoring structure? So this way, that is more important. And you're going to see that coming in the pipeline. We have already worked on it. We have developed it. It's going to release soon. But that's where the things are moving. Again, both generative AI for testing only, and then B, also not just creating models, but creating what we call real world evidence and monitoring. And that is where, things are going to move forward, in my opinion. And then, Martin, that's the last question that I have. Is that in this situation where we see all of the data is retrospective, and it's all this, are you planning a pathway with your current partners, with companies like me, to not only do the retrospective data, but also, let's say I have an IRB, you can extrapolate that and then be the middle person to actually consider generating what we call real world evidence, which, by the way, FDA is moving towards.
So when I started SegMed, I wanted to do 1,000 things, and realized really quickly, okay, we got to focus on something. I love the idea, and by the way, theoretically, it's possible because we do have live updates. Like we have direct connections with the PACS and risk systems, with the IT systems of healthcare systems. So theoretically, we could actually prospectively, like if you include patients, we can actually follow them up and include those images in the specific study and things like that, or evaluate how a model is working and things like that. It's not necessarily soon on the roadmap, just because we still have a lot to do when it comes to the real world data, like the retrospective component. And when I say there's a lot to do, what we're currently doing is just providing radiology data and starting to expand to other modalities. Another thing that we're very interested in, when you mentioned real world evidence, is actually providing insights on top of the data. Not for diagnostic purposes. We don't want to compete against our own customers. But we do have customers in the pharma life science world that don't necessarily know how to handle DICOM files, or that are not experienced in the kind of things that Junaid and his team is actually experienced in, is using those data and really developing models on top of that. But these pharma companies, for example, are interested in, hey, can you give me a collection of 500 patients that have lung cancer, that half of them used medication X and the other half used medication Y, and tell me how the volume of the lung tumor changed over time in those two populations, just as a simple example. But those kind of real world evidence or analytics or insights based on images actually become relevant once you have enough data, once you can do those kind of analysis. So that's another thing that we want to move towards. We are starting to do that. But that's something.
Save Life AI is an IRB. We actually have already one site. We're gonna give me 2 weeks. I just want to show that governance piece with you. We'll meet and then plan out something together. Maybe just an experiment. It may help. It may not. That's how our startups work, right?
Yep.
You work on something, you find value, you develop it into a product. You work on something, you don't find value, you discard it. Harvey, back to you.
Yeah, I know we got about 7 minutes left, and I see some awesome comments. I want to highlight this one. It's interesting. It's got a good question. Basically, it was up a second ago. It says diverse training data is necessary, but not sufficient. If the labels were generated from billing codes shaped by unequal access to care, adding more data from underserved populations may encode disparity deeper rather than correct. How do we solve for representation first, with first solving for the label fidelity? Really interesting. I'm curious what you think.
Yeah, I mean, this is a complex problem. I guess we're doing what we can do. By the way, we're not necessarily using billing codes to label images. We're using either experts that actually are looking at images, right? Like it's either annotations, segmentations, and so on, done by experts. But within our how do you say that? Within our platform, we're actually using the reports as the label or annotation method. So that's kind of our ground truth, and that's mostly because our clients are interested in, I want to have a CT scan with contrast in the arterial phase of the chest, because I do research on PE, pulmonary embolism, right? So those are the kind of classifications that we are building in, and then we're also, we'll look at the report to say, hey, this patient actually has a PE or does not have a PE. So that's how we kind of generate the labels. So we're not using claims data for that. But yeah, the problem about not reaching certain minorities is a problem that I don't know, that we don't have a solution for that.
Yeah,
right,
so just to clarify, so when I submit a request to them, we actually get a CSV file which actually has radiology reports that is in a way extracted information, and then of course I select whatever actual studies I need to report. Then I, as a labeling company or under Martin's partners, will actually produce what we call ground truth. And once you have the ground truth, then you go forward. Now the question is, again, at the point of the data selection, is that can we have it? So their system, again, there's a whole platform built behind it, does help you, but again, it can never be 100%. And FDA even recognizes it. And then that's why we are teaching our AI to say, I don't know. Is all of these things are important, because we have to still move things forward. I mean, especially looking at how China is moving things, it is insane. And I think we actually need to bring this to real world in an IRB format. That's what I'm actually trying to work towards personally, is basically rather than stuck over there, let's push it to real world, get real results, and then approve them. So I think that's where FDA is going towards as well. We're going to see this as the future of development. Again, it is going to take some time, but that's pretty much it. Martin, anything we would like to add? How do we reach to you? Anything that you would like to suggest to our audiences, and then go from there?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It was great to be here. Great conversation, great questions, and good interaction with the attendees. Like, I can tell you guys have a good audience here that know what they're talking about. So that's really awesome. I appreciate that. Yeah, for me, you can reach me on LinkedIn, or Google search for Martin Willemink, and you can probably find me there. I'm happy to talk about anything data, AI, in medical imaging, real-world imaging data. And if you are a researcher, academic or commercial, and you do need access to data to either develop an AI model or to do research on data, please let me know, and we will very likely be able to help you.
I know we only have 2 minutes real quick. I'm just going to summarize in like 5 sentences. So AI in healthcare is an algorithm problem. I'm sorry. AI in healthcare is not an algorithm problem. It's a data problem. Second, the future diagnostics won't be determined by who is the best model, but who has the best data set. Third, data diversity is the vaccine against AI bias. Fourth, in medicine, we say garbage in, garbage out, but AI just scales that problem. So I want you to think about that. And then the last is the real breakthrough in healthcare AI will come from when models are trained on messy reality of medicine and not the clean data sets that we see in the research labs. So that's just kind of a little quick summary. So thank you for coming. Please reach out to Martin. I've already talked to Pons AI just now, telling him to reach out to you so that he can talk to you about his ultrasound AI data sets. And I know Junaid and him could also work on several projects. So please reach out. Please, everybody, follow Martin and Junaid and I, and then obviously share this particular link with everybody so that more people can see it. Anything else, Junaid?
No, thank you so much for joining. See you next week. Adios.
Bye-bye. Thanks for having me.
And Martin, don't hang